Welcome to another episode of our personal empowerment audio series, Finding Yourself in Paradise. Hi, I'm Michael Benner.
And I'm Steve Snyder, and our program today is on one of the most wondrous powers of the human mind. It's called focus or paying attention. It's called the flow or the alpha brainwave state. We call it paradise. Today we're going to talk about the power of concentration.
Yeah, most people aren't very good at this, and there's very little information available about concentration. Even the phrase paying attention has a very odd derivation. I'm not sure myself even where it came from. Who are you paying to create attention? I remember as a boy, I guess the first time I really encountered the idea, I had coaches tell me in Little League and elsewhere to keep my eye on the ball. And, I was pretty good at that. I was a catcher in Little League. And I was good at catching the ball. Hitting the ball, boy, I always found that difficult. To hit a round ball with a round bat, they say, is the most difficult accomplishment in any sport. And I just had a hard time concentrating or, again, paying attention to that baseball. I think I would look at it until just before I swung, and then my attention went away somehow. But I didn't have the skills then that I have now. Nobody told me until I was well into my 20s, I think maybe even my 30s, that I began to realize that concentration, paying attention, is a relaxation skill. Concentration is not an effort, that if you try to concentrate, it's going to have just the opposite effect.
Yeah, it's really a pretty fascinating concept. I mean, I had almost the opposite experience as a child. It was like, to me, when somebody said pay attention, my thought was, I am paying attention. I'm paying attention to this book I'm reading. You're trying to get me to pay attention to you. It's like pay attention is, hey, over here. That's to me what pay attention meant. I know how to pay attention. I always pay attention. When I take my mind and put it in a book, my mom used to say nuclear bombs could go off next door and it wouldn't rouse you from your book. So I know about paying attention. I know how it feels to be in that zone, in that flow, in that place where you feel like the whole time thing goes away and the whole space thing goes away. It's a really common experience for me and for everyone else to some extent in their lives when they daydream or as they're falling asleep at least. We do spend some of every single day in a state of total paying attention, a total concentration. But for many people, as Michael was saying, it feels like almost a foreign experience. It's like they think the way to do it is they have to try. The concentration, they think it means, like tighten your muscles. Concentration, actually, as you were saying, is just exactly the opposite. Concentration is what happens when you let go, when you surrender, when you release. Concentration, that is paying attention to only one thing, is the natural thing for the human mind to do in the awake state when there's no thought of danger. When we're feeling totally unstressed, when we're like we're laying in a hammock, so it's daydreaming, spacing out or spacing in, sometimes thinking about your dreams, your plans, your goals, your hopes. Sometimes it's going off into wonderful memories of that wedding day or that honeymoon. That's focused concentration. That's daydreaming, but it's totally paying attention to one thing. It's the alpha brainwave state. I mean, there are 4 states. We spend some time totally unconscious asleep, and there's time when our subconscious is just taking over and doing the dreaming thing. That's the theta state. But when we get into the state of just daydreaming, spacing out or spacing in, going from one thing to another thing, or staying with that one thing for quite some time, in either case, one depends on whether there's any passion or not. If there's no passion, you'll just space out onto the next thing. If there's passion, you'll stay there. But from there, we move into that stressful divided attention beta state, and then we start thinking about a bunch of stuff. And most people spend most of their time thinking about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things at the same time. I mean, all that's up there. They're going back and forth, but it's all up there. But there are times for all of us, at least on the way to sleep, where we're able to let all that go, get out of the stress of the world, feel like we're inside the tribe with those sentries posted outside the tribe so we don't have to worry anymore. We're totally safe in here. Nothing bad can happen in here. We're snuggled up and we're safe. Once we get that feeling, then our mind can let go of all the danger, let go of all the stress, the tension, the anxiety, the confusion, and it can start to concentrate on those things that it considers worthy of its focused attention.
It's interesting to me, Steve, that you'd bring up those 4 brainwave states of deep sleep, dreams, the alpha brainwave state between awake and asleep, And that, of course, is the celebrated state that we talk about as focused passion or narrow awake, meditation, contemplation, the flow in sports psychology. And then the state where we're easily distracted, that's wide awake but scattered, attention jumping all over like a Mexican bean. That's the beta brainwave level. Because I thought you were going to talk about alpha as being the state of focused attention, as I just suggested, but as I think about it, concentration, you'd have to say that 3 of those 4 states are concentrated states, wouldn't you? I mean, aren't we concentrating when we're asleep? When we sleep and dream, isn't that? Aren't we concentrating?
It depends on what you mean by the term, and certainly it can be debated. If concentration is what the conscious mind is focusing on, then when you're dreaming, unless you're lucidly dreaming, unless you're you're being aware of the fact that you're dreaming while you're dreaming, then there's really no concentration going on.
Because you're not conscious.
Because you're not conscious. The subconscious isn't really concentrating on the dream because it's at the same time beating the heart, pumping the blood, and regulating. At the same time, it's changing all the chemistry. At the same time, it's dealing with balance and all that stuff. So you can't say really the subconscious is concentrating at any time because it's always doing a whole bunch of things. So concentration might just mean when you are conscious. So it must start with that lucid dreaming, that trance-like state in between awake and asleep where you're not quite awake, but you know what's going on. You're aware of the fact that you're in this like meditative state, that higher consciousness place, all the way into what we call the alpha state, which is just paying attention to one thing at a time. For a short time, if you have little passion. For a long time, if you have a lot of passion. And then we move into thinking about a whole bunch of stuff. So, yeah, that alpha state is the most powerful and natural state for humans to be in. Stress, the beta state has become normal in 21st century world, but that alpha state, feeling safe, is still what's really natural.
Well, maybe it's easier if we talk about concentration from what it's not. We'll use the via negativa approach here.
That'll work.
The distracted
like making a statue. Cut away everything that doesn't look like the guy, and then that's it.
Exactly. Let's talk about what we're familiar with, which is the beta state, wide awake, easily distracted. And why are we so easily distracted? In other words, what stands between us in normal consciousness and our ability to focus our attention on a single thing? Again, it's fight or flight, that what used to be a response to danger has become a lifestyle for most of us. We're living in a state of such overstimulation, maybe not everybody, but clearly the vast majority of us, and especially people that are living in urban areas, driving in traffic and trying to keep up with the pace of the 21st century. We are so overstimulated that the brain or the subconscious mind, depending on which model you want to use, believes that there must be some sort of danger hidden in all of this stimulus, like there's this and that and the other thing, and my goodness, some of it must be dangerous. The point is I don't know, so we're hardwired to presume or assume on some kind of unconscious level that it's best to err on the side of believing there probably is a danger hidden in there.
I think I can put it in one sentence. We feel like we're living in a world full of tigers with way too many rustling bushes.
That's true. And yet, it's a little more high-tech than that, of course. I understand what you're saying, but who knows what's going on inside this computer? A few geeks and nerds and techies really understand this stuff. Most of us really don't.
I haven't figured out the toaster yet.
I was going to say, I don't think most people understand the microwave or a vacuum cleaner. Or how many people...
I get on airplanes all the time. I haven't figured that one out at all. I do know the laws of aerodynamics. I mean, I understand, but still, it's amazing that all that can do that.
How many people even know how a refrigerator works or an air conditioner? You know, I think as we get deeper and deeper into high tech, we're going to, all other things being equal, experience more stress and therefore more distraction and a greater challenge concentrating, because we're dealing with the confusion of just being appliance operators. I can run the microwave, I can start the car, I can operate this computer, but I'm really just an operator. It's like commercial radio that I did for years. You put me down behind a microphone with an on-off button, a cough button, a headset, and a volume control, I can do radio. But I'm not an engineer. I'm not one of those guys that can open up a transmitter, go inside with a soldering iron, and find their way around and fix stuff that's broken. I remember telling a guy in this summer job I had in college, he said, "What are you majoring in?" And I says, "Radio and TV." He said, "Oh, great. Could you fix my radio? Thing hasn't worked for weeks." And I said, "No, it's not. That's not what I'm studying." And I never really have figured out the magic of radio. It's just such a mystery. Here, invented 100 years ago. And yet, who really understands radio, how it works, and what a miracle it is? Do you know what a bar magnet is? My goodness, how a simple bar magnet works. Most people would say, "No, I don't know, and I just don't care." And yet, when we live a life immersed in confusion, not knowing, unawareness. I hate to use the word ignorance, but we just don't have that many words for what we don't know. Well, that's going to create stress. The body's going to perceive that as potentially dangerous and allow us to be very easily distracted. That, I think, is why it's so hard for us to concentrate.
Yeah, it's also, part of us is hardwired to, look at the whole picture to see if danger is coming from any direction, rather than to allow ourselves to block out all that peripheral and focus in on one little thing. ADD, as Tom Hartman said in several of his books, might just be the leftover gatherer versus the agrarian age, where we could, see the big picture that we got to plant now so we can harvest later. Whereas the hunter's on the lookout right now all the time. He's got to look over there, and then he's got to look over there. He can't stay looking over there just because it looks so good. He's got to look over there just 'cause something else might happen from the other direction. So it could be that part of us is hardwired to pay attention for short periods of time, and other people are more hardwired to pay attention for much longer periods of time in a much different kind of way. Regardless of how we operate we have the ability to operate on both levels. Even if we do have very short attention spans, naturally, we can create a long attention span for something that we're really fascinated by. And even if we do have really long attention span, which means maybe we couldn't be a CEO of a company that had 30 different jobs you had to do in any given day, we could learn, how to do some of that at least, even though it's not our natural way. But it sure is much easier to find your calling, that is to find what really flows for you and is more natural for you, because then it's much easier to concentrate. We talked about what concentration isn't. Well, what concentration isn't is the concept we call multitasking, which isn't really that, but it's really trying to go back and forth between a whole bunch of different things. That's not concentration. So if you've got a whole bunch of things, I'm always reminded, I guess it was Ed Sullivan that I first saw, that guy spinning the plates, keeping the plate, and he's got this one's almost done, and I got to go with him. And that's what life is like, and that's not concentration. When you've got all those different plates going at the same time. Now, that doesn't mean concentration can't be having all those plates. You just do this one, and when it's done, then you do this one, and when it's done, then you do this one. Then you could actually concentrate on each plate. But going back and forth between the plates is what concentration truly isn't.
So what's the value of concentration? What do we get from it? Why would a teacher want a student to concentrate, to pay attention? Well, it promotes understanding, basically. It's a way of soaking up, receiving, taking in more information. And it's a matter of comprehending a bigger picture as well. I think whether you're focused on a detail or whether you want to perceive the bigger picture with all these little details in it, both demand a certain degree of concentration. As Steve said, if you're looking at the bigger picture and your attention is scattered or divided, if you're not concentrating, then you're going to look at all the different bits, right? It's like looking at a menu in a restaurant, and you see all these different items that you could order, and it's only after a few minutes of examining all these little bits and pieces, these little dishes that you could order for lunch, that you finally realize, oh, I'm in a Chinese restaurant. I didn't realize. Right? Oh, I get it. And now you see the bigger picture. Or whether you approach a problem, bigger picture first. I get the concept. Now I want to zoom in and look at the little bits. You're going to use concentration in both of those situations. The problem that we have, again, is that we tend to celebrate I'll say it this way, the perception of excitement when our attention is scattered. Anxiety can feel like excitement. Anxiety and fear can be very exciting. I mean, think about it. You want to do something really exciting on your vacation. You want to go rock climbing or whitewater rafting or have a real adventure. Well, then there's going to have to be an element of danger in it. Even a roller coaster where you know you're relatively safe and you're buckled up and they put the big bar over you. Nevertheless, there's the feeling that you could die at any minute. That's where the fun and the excitement comes from. So a lot of people really love danger, fear, anxiety, danger real or imagined, I'll say. Fear and anxiety, they find it exciting. They call it oh boy, and they can't distinguish between oh boy and oh no. And for short terms, short periods of time, that can be very exciting. That oh boy feeling is very real. But if it's sustained, if it becomes a day-to-day routine, if it becomes a lifestyle, well, we get addicted to it. We become adrenaline junkies, and after a matter of time, years maybe, decades, you suffer from adrenal burnout. Your adrenal glands actually stop producing adrenaline. You burn out. You fry. There's a phrase, burnout, from being overstimulated. We just can't handle it. And it's not good for our health. I mean, the very idea that illness is called dis-ease suggests that good health is promoted by prolonged or significant periods of being at ease. So concentration as a relaxation skill is going to promote your health. And a lot of what stress management is about is promoting the good health that comes from that. But Steve and I have always been just as interested, sometimes even more interested, in the consequences of stress, fear, anxiety, adrenal burnout, if you will, on the mental and emotional and spiritual aspects. And just as stress and anxiety creates physical illness, it creates mental illness too. Sadness, anxiety, depression. Steve mentioned ADD. Much of ADD is simply stress. I won't argue that it's all stress. I think it's too complicated a category to make a sweeping generalization, but I know from personal experience working with people using simple anxiety-reducing stress management skills, teaching concentration as a relaxation skill, that for a lot of people, their ADD just disappears. They were living in a state of fight or flight. So the negative consequences of that are, they go right across the board. Physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. There's a feeling of alienation and loneliness and meaninglessness that you could describe as spiritual as well as emotional, that, again, is promoted by stress and anxiety. Concentration as a relaxation skill is an antidote to that. So it helps you to understand from a learning point of view. It helps promote healing. Learning and healing are very closely related skills, but make no mistake, concentration as a relaxation skill promotes both healing and learning.
So let's take a look at concentration and the nature of the thinking process and how it actually works. Obviously there's different kinds of thinking. We call it applied thinking or purposeful thinking when you decide to think about something like, what am I going to do for my next seminar? What am I going to do different in my next seminar? So I've decided that's the thing that I want my thoughts to be about. And so I guide my thoughts through, that's a good idea. I guide my thoughts. I purposely think about different options, different opportunities to way to do this. So that's one kind of thinking, purposeful thinking. Now, in the middle of purposeful thinking, sometimes what happens is some purposeful thought has some strong emotional trigger connected to something else maybe that takes you off on a tangent. Sometimes tangent thinking is the best thinking of all. Some of the greatest ideas come in tangent kind of thinking, but that's off of the initial purpose you had for your thinking, but still part of that same thinking process. But a totally different kind of thinking process is when you're just sort of like kicking back and watching the thought stream go by. You know, like your mind's just going where it goes, and you're not purposely thinking about anything. Your mind's just there. And once in a while, something has an emotional trigger, and you think about it longer, or maybe even it takes you off on a tangent. But otherwise, it just goes by too, and then the next one goes by, and you're just watching your thoughts go by. Now, concentration comes in when you choose to purposely think about something. You choose to concentrate on that, and concentration comes in. And that's triggered by the conscious mind, by logic and reasoning and deduction and the willpower. And then sometimes concentration is triggered as you're watching your thoughts go by. Sometimes concentration is triggered by the subconscious mind, by an emotional trigger, by a passionate experience with one of those thoughts that gets you like really interested in it and then going off into that thought. So therefore your concentration now is, or focused passion state is triggered by your emotions. So concentration can be triggered by logic. It can be triggered by emotion. But it can be a choice, or it can be just something you experience because you're passionate about it. But do understand that there are lots of times when concentration isn't going to happen naturally, and that's when you're just sort of spacing out, when your mind is just going, you're just following that thought stream. There's no concentration in just, letting your mind go wherever it goes. Nothing bad about that, but if you're talking about how to concentrate, take a look at what concentrate means. It's taking from a huge amount in a diffused area to making it smaller amount in a smaller, from diffused to concentrated. So concentration means bringing it all together. So you can choose to take all those bits and pieces and see them as one thing, concentrate on them, concentrate them, make them a concentrate, or you can just see it all, let it all go by as many, many bits and pieces. Concentration, I guess what I'm saying, is ultimately a choice.
Like concentrated orange juice.
Yeah.
Take all the water out, and you get a gallon of orange juice in this tiny little can. A nice model that has always worked for me, and I'll share it with you, is to think of concentration as the ability to focus, much as you might adjust a flashlight. Now, if you have the flashlight set on a wide beam, like a floodlight, you're lighting up a large area, but the light's not that strong. As you focus the end of the flashlight, if you have one of those kinds of flashlights, you can move from floodlight to spotlight, and although you're illuminating a smaller area, the light gets brighter, right? So if you need a bright light, you're going to focus, you're going to concentrate the light. And if a flashlight had the ability to go all the way down to a laser beam, so-called coherent light, where the light waves are actually parallel to each other, theoretically, well, you can cut steel with a laser beam. That's how powerful light is. It was just this weak floodlight, and then you made it stronger as a spotlight. Now imagine a laser beam with which you could cut through the thickest and strongest of metals with light. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the invention of laser beams, and I was in grade school. I was pretty young when I began to read about it and study it, but I always thought, that is absolutely amazing. They're cutting steel with light. And now we sort of take it for granted. The most delicate surgery, brain surgery, common eye surgery is done with laser beams. Not a matter of cutting through something that is really strong, but very precise cuts, very delicate, and all of that with concentration, concentrating the light. Well, in the same way, follow this metaphor. How powerful is your mind going to be if you could concentrate your attention on your thoughts? Again, not through any effort, but promoting concentration with relaxation, so that you're more open, more receptive to understanding as your focus gets tighter and tighter. That's really a beautiful ability. Again, not only for sports and learning and healing and the other areas that we've talked about, but how about what I consider the greatest benefit of all, understanding yourself. Now, most people would think at this point that I'm talking about concentrating your thoughts. But what about concentrating your awareness upon your thoughts? This is a concept called mindfulness. And people are becoming, fortunately, more and more aware of the enormous benefits, the long list of wonderful benefits that come from practicing mindfulness. Again, it's concentration as a relaxation skill combined with an attention in the moment. People who study meditation and mindfulness quickly become aware that when they don't choose to deliberately focus on the present moment, what is distracting us is the past and the future. We re-examine the past. We have regrets and resentments and lessons to learn. Some of that is valuable. But to dwell in the past is to miss the reality of the present moment. And then there are the distractions of the future, worrying that these past mistakes are going to be repeated down the calendar page. And, oh no, what if that happens again? A distraction from the reality of the present moment. So, if you are still suffering from the belief that meditation or mindfulness is some sort of new age, woo-woo, far-out freak show, hey, this is 10,000 years old. Enlightened women and men have been practicing paying attention to their thoughts, their feelings, their internal experience of living in a body and how that feels emotionally, physically, kinesthetically in the body, watching their thoughts without being the thinker, watching their emotional feelings, the ebb and flow, without being a victim of those feelings. You see, paying attention, as in the concept of mindfulness, really turns the equation around from life is being done to me, I'm a target, I'm an effect, I'm a victim, to no, breathe, relax, there you go, promoting concentration, and mindfully focus on the moment. Now, you can be receptive to what the mind is doing independently. Lots of times this is taught by watching your breath until you begin to realize that you're not the one breathing, you're the one watching your body breathe itself. Well, you can do that same thing with your thoughts and feelings. And the freedom, the incredible freedom that comes from realizing that you can just watch your thoughts without being the thinker. You don't have to be driven by your thoughts. You don't have to believe everything you think. You don't have to do it just because you thought to do it. You have critical thinking now, this second layer of insight and understanding. I mean, just the concept, you don't have to believe everything you think, I think is incredibly challenging at first, funny on second thought, and liberating if you really ponder it.
Actually, a better way to say it is you better not believe everything you think. Because, I mean, did you get every question right on every test you ever took? And you believed you were right. We think wrong thoughts every single day. I mean, that's a very important concept. Of course, the other side of that equation is you can go ahead and believe what you feel. That doesn't mean, it's right or wrong or good or bad, because feelings aren't logical or illogical. They just are. If you feel sad, you're sad. So go ahead and believe you're sad. But your thoughts can bring you out of feeling sad. You can choose your thoughts. Thoughts can be right and or wrong, but feelings just sort of are. I was thinking about what does it take to concentrate? If you want to be able to concentrate, what do you need to do? And I remember that dilemma when I was a little kid. Like, I want to be able to focus my mind. I want to be able to concentrate. How do I do that? And it occurred to me, the basic way to concentrate is to find one thing to concentrate on and get really good at concentrating on that. So you can automatically get into a really good focused concentration state. And then from there, you can go wherever you want to go. And thus was born the concept of paradise, the concept of closing your eyes and going to a peaceful place, because that's concentrating on one thing. And if it's always the same peaceful place, with embellishments, but you don't have to stop and think, which peaceful place am I going to go to? You know which place you're going to go to. It's always the same place. So you go there and all of a sudden you're concentrating. And now you're concentrating. concentrating. You can take that concentration and go anywhere you want to go. But the secret, I think, to being able to quickly concentrate is to practice concentrating on one thing over and over and over again and get really, really good at it. Find a doorway in, I mean, if focused concentration is a building, it has a front door. The front door is the way you get into it. And the way you get into it, we've always recommended a sort of a multi-layered way, combining taking a deep breath, combining letting go of physical tension and anxiety and confusion, but mostly just focusing your mind, whether you visualize or just simply conceptualize yourself in being in a safe and peaceful place, that safe and peaceful place that we call paradise.
I need to give attribution to the great late philosopher Alan Watts for this story. He very wisely offered in one of his lectures the idea of, let's say, being on an asteroid going through space. Just you, got to use your imagination here, on this rock that's traveling through space. And you fall off the rock. And at the same time you fall off this asteroid, a small piece of rock falls off with you. Maybe a piece that's about as big as you are, right? So you and a rock that's about the size of you has fallen off this asteroid as you're traveling through space. What is your tendency but to hold on to that rock, as if it's going to offer you some kind of security or at least some comfort? You're going to want to see if you can swim over to that rock and somehow get a hold of it. It's just natural human instinct to think that holding on to this rock is going to help you. Well, you and the rock are still falling through space. Where is the security in holding on to the rock? It's a complete illusion. There is no security. And yet that tendency to clutch, to hold on, to attach ourselves to physical reality is also reflected in the way we treat our thoughts. We hold on to our thoughts. Not only are we driven by what we think and are not nearly as critical or as creative as we could be and should be, but we embrace those thoughts desperately. We hold on to them as if our whole identity and motive and the meaning and purpose of life and everything that is meaningful is found in my thoughts.
Somebody said the most remarkable thing about negative thoughts and feelings is how people worship them.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
It's a desperate holding on. I got to hold on to something, right? Well, the truth is you don't have to hold on. As a matter of fact, the vast majority, we see this in psychotherapy and hypnotherapy and working with stress and anxiety, the vast majority of what people call being stuck is actually the result of holding on. Now think about that for a second. I bet I got your attention. I bet you're concentrating now. How many times have you felt stuck? Take a look at that stuckness in your life and then ask yourself gently, be kind to yourself, was I holding on? Yeah, you were. Holding on to what? I don't know. Anything. Just that thought, that vague idea, this notion, this feeling, maybe this experience I once had. What else do I hold on to? Well, where in the world did we get the idea we need to hold on? It's like Steve talked about being in the airplane. Does holding on inside the airplane make you any more secure?
There seem to be a lot of people who think it might. They're doing that, white knucklers up there. No, certainly, the thought that you're safe doesn't make you feel safe. Thinking that something is safe, even knowing intellectually that it's safe, doesn't make you feel safe. Feelings and thoughts are very, very different things. But we have the power to choose what we want to concentrate on, or we have the power to allow our mind to go concentrate wherever passion takes us. It's really wonderful. Both choices are great. What isn't so great is being in a state where you are not able to concentrate. There's just too many things going on and you haven't got it sorted out. It's too chaotic. It's too uncomfortable. It's too many rustling bushes, too many potential dangers out there, too many places, too many fires to put out. You can't concentrate when there's all these things continually distracting you. And it's not that we are stuck, because stuck means it's holding on to us. As Michael was saying, it's that we're holding on to it. It's like, this pencil won't let go of me. It's like, no, you got to let go of the pencil. You got to let go of. And how do you hold on to something? That's really pretty simply explained. The way the mind body knows to hold on to something is it goes, it tightens the muscles, it holds the breath, it clutches the hands, it tightens, it holds on. Like how would you hold on? You'd tighten up, you'd hold on. How do you let go of something? Well, you open, you relax, you let go, you release. You let go of the muscle tension, you let go of the breath. So the way you have a negative thought and hold on to it is to let that thought cause you to go and tighten up. Now you're holding on to the thought. The way you let a negative thought go is you have that thought and you go, and you relax. And now you're letting go, not of the thought, but of the emotional power the thought has over you. See, the power the thought has over you is to make you go, and if it can't make you go anymore, if it can't make you afraid anymore, if you feel safe in its presence, then it's just a thought. It's just a memory of something that happened. It's not grabbing you right now. So letting go means facing and releasing. It's easy to do. It was hard to do then whenever it was you were facing the thing in the first place. That's why you held on back then. But you were younger then. You're older now, and you've got the more mature you to bring with you when you face these things that are from your past that cause you to feel unsafe. And it's those kinds of things that are the distractions in life. Mostly it's stuff from the past, the regrets, the remorse, the embarrassment, the shame, and the stuff in the future, the worry and the apprehension about what's going to happen. It's that stuff that takes us out of the now and puts us in that stressful tension place. And when we get out of tension, we move into attention. And that's what concentration is all about.
Didn't Paul McCartney and the band he did right after the Beatles' Wings, didn't they do a tune called Feels Like Letting Go?
That sounds familiar.
I think so. And I think he's talking about love. There's a letting go in allowing love in your life. Because, again, holding on is fear.
Surrender.
Right?
There's got to be some surrender.
And interestingly, holding on is fear. That tension divides. Isn't that funny that holding on to fear, and all holding on is fear, and all fear is holding on, that creates division. But letting go creates harmony and unity. That seems contradictory. It's a little paradoxical. But if you work with that, you understand love is so magnetic that you don't need to hold on any more than a fish has to hold on to water or you have to hold on to air. It's everywhere. Well, that's who you are. Awareness. And it's everywhere. You don't need to hold on to those thoughts and carry them around like baggage. Now, you've probably heard that phrase. If you've ever been in psychotherapy or know anybody that's ever gone through psychotherapy, didn't they talk about their emotional baggage and why they were dragging that old stuff around from place to place? Why are they holding on? I've actually had clients say to me, I don't know how to let go. And I would take a sheet of paper. I did this several times. I crumbled it up, and I said, put that in the wastebasket. And they would walk over and let it go and drop it. I said, notice you didn't bend over and put it in the wastebasket. You just held your hand above the wastebasket and released your grip, your attachment to that piece of crumbled up paper. And it fell, gravity, it just fell away. Well, you can let your pain fall away. You can let your worries and doubts and fears fall away.
That doesn't mean you won't remember them. It means they won't emotionally disempower you anymore. They won't take away your passion.
You don't have to carry them around now. Your arms aren't full of all of this baggage and luggage. And again, when we're free from these past regrets and resentments and fears of the future, we can now pay attention through letting go, through concentration. What is relaxation but letting go of muscular tension? You're now free to be in the only thing that's real, this present moment. Eternity is not this great basket of time. It's not a line that goes off to infinity in both directions. Eternity is a little pinpoint of time, this now, that just keeps unfolding. It's got a rhythm to it. Time definitely has a rhythm to it. And that rhythm can even change, speed up or slow down. Everything, though, has its seasons and its tides, its periods, its ebb and flow, its in-breath and out-breath, its expansion and contraction. But all of that happens right here in the now. And wouldn't you like to learn to concentrate effortlessly, to pay attention to the now? Otherwise, you spend your whole life regretting the past, trying to avoid repeating those mistakes in the future, distracted from what's happening right here, right now. That's one of the things that's so wonderful about love, whether it's romantic love or the way you love your kids or you love your dogs or kitties. I mean, it brings you into the moment. It brings you into the now, and all of your worries fall away. It is very avoidable, all of this worry. We're holding on to it, and it's scattering our attention, frightening us, and causing us to hold on even more. A kind of a really perverse, vicious cycle. Relaxation and concentration, on the other hand, is the antidote. It's the way out. It's the escape hatch. You can just let go of all of that. And again, go back to Alan Watts' example of falling through space with the rock beside you. It doesn't matter if you hold on to the rock. There's no security in holding on. You don't need to hold on to anything, all right? Just relax. Not even your thoughts. In fact, let's practice that with a meditation. Let's focus our passion gently with relaxation and laser beam our thoughts effortlessly through relaxation, moving into the alpha brainwave level, narrow awake, and practice this letting go.
So start by noticing the tension that you have within you. Take a deep breath, fill your lungs all the way full, and start the process of, as you release the breath, letting go of the tension at the same time. With each deep breath you exhale, you feel the beginnings of the process that Michael called letting go. So deep breath, feel the tension, and then as you release the breath, sense the relaxation and the letting go. And now, if you have yet to do this, close your eyes and imagine yourself in paradise, in a peaceful place where it's safe and it's clear, that surrounded by love, there's no room for fear. You're safe, secure, feeling fine, relaxing in body and spirit and mind. And as you slow down, what you inevitably find in paradise is letting go. Letting go of the past and its hold over you. Letting go of future worries and what that can do too. Letting go and allowing yourself to be here, full of love, free of fear.
Beginning meditation students often complain that it's hard to do because the mind keeps distracting them. There are these spontaneous thoughts, not applied thinking, but that stream of consciousness or train of thoughts that occurs spontaneously even when you have no interest in thinking at all. Many beginning students say, well, don't I have to stop that in order to meditate? And the truth is, no, that whether we call it meditation or contemplation, the alpha brainwave level, narrow awake, One of Steve's terms are focused passion, another term we like a lot. The relaxation and the letting go of pressure and muscular tension that promotes concentration will in and of itself begin to reduce the number of thoughts that are demanding your attention and the rate at which you're distracted by those thoughts. But let's go one step further. Allowing my voice to guide you as you feel even more relaxed and more peaceful. Watch your thinking. Pay attention to the thought. But see it as coming from you, through you, and out into the world. Watch it leave you, this thought, and move out. Rather than thinking of the thought as coming at you, think of it coming from you, or even through you. And just sort of imagine yourself standing off to the side, if you wish, like an interested but non-participating observer, just watching the distraction. And follow that thought stream, that train of thinking, now that we've slowed it down. Part of your thoughts are responding to my very words. But there are probably other thoughts. You may be thinking about food. You might be wondering about something you need to do later today, solving this problem or attending to this concern or that. Well, just watch that. And notice how quickly it concludes and then leads to another thought on a completely different topic. And tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, as you practice this exercise, I'd like you to pay attention to the connection where this thought ends and the next thought begins. And see if there isn't a little gap between the thoughts. And become fascinated and interested in the gap. And notice that when that gap between these spontaneous thoughts goes by, you didn't pass out, you didn't become unconscious. There was a brief little fraction of a second where you were not thinking at all, and yet you were aware of it. And consider that with this awareness, concentration through relaxation, you could practice expanding the gap between the thoughts. That's the escape route. That's the way out. The gap between the thoughts.
And the more you relax, the longer the gaps can be. And you'll find that those gaps can really, really help you feel free. And from those gaps, you just might see bursts of creativity. So relax and let the gaps grow. The bigger the gaps, the more you might know. And allow yourself to just let it flow and let the silence grow. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, and what I want you to do is just come up with the first answer that comes to you. How good at concentration are you? And now, here's another question, a follow-through. If you could be the best you could be, how good at concentration could you be? And let's start the process by imagining that you are better at concentration now. Imagine it's true what you want to create in the future, as if it's happening here. That's the first step. See the bullseye. Start with the end in mind. Imagine yourself a person capable of great concentration. Begin to do that, and you'll find that your concentration gets better and better and better and better each day. Just imagine yourself a person with great concentration. And now you know, and your mind knows the way. Imagine it over and over every day.
Bring this wonderful feeling of peace and relaxation. The gentle, focused attention that you now understand is concentration. Bring that with you back to the wide-awake state. A quality of peace, feeling calm, that can change your whole worldview, your whole experience of life, no matter what happens in the world around you. Bring that with you effortlessly. You know how it feels now. As you reorient yourself by remembering and bringing to mind what you'll see in a moment when we ask you to open your eyes. Wide awake and alert, rested and refreshed, feeling really good. Just inhale now through the nose, ideally, filling your lungs slowly. Hold for just a moment as you peak. And now as you exhale, open your eyes, wide awake, alert, back in the room, feeling rested and refreshed, feeling all energized and invigorated better than before.
Yeah, breathing is good and not breathing is bad. The brain's very clear on that one, and it loves to breathe. And one of the things that happens when you move out of stress into this letting go and relaxed state is your body breathes more. You don't have to consciously do it. Breathing just happens. Of course, you can consciously breathe. That's one of the cool things about breathing. You can do it on purpose or you can just let it happen. But one of the greatest ways of learning how to watch yourself think is just starting by watching yourself breathe. Watch your body breathe itself. Just notice how that happens. And then you can step back and watch your thoughts. The best part about watching your thoughts is you're not like automatically wanting to do them. You have that extra moment, that gap where you have a moment where you think, well, it's just a thought. It's not me. It's not who I really am. It's just one of those thoughts that goes through your mind. Some good ones, some bad ones. Don't believe everything you think, as Michael and I have been saying, because you think some very strange thoughts, some very, very strange thoughts indeed.
It is true what you say about the ability to go back and forth from involuntary to voluntary in your breathing. It's sort of like throwing the switch from the front speakers to the rear speakers of your stereo. You're the guy that gets to throw the switch. You're the woman or the man that gets to decide, am I going to allow my body to breathe itself, or am I going to breathe consciously? You're not the breather. And in the same way, you're not those thoughts. You're not just a thinker.
Are you the breathee? You're not the victim of your breath.
You can be the observer, the witness. You are the awareness. And that's really liberating, incredibly liberating concept. Hey, thanks for being with us. Join us for our next regular program in the series, Finding Yourself in Paradise. And tell your friends all about FocusedPassion.com. Send them a program, one of our premium audio programs, with the Share One with a Friend gadget right below the built-in player. Just use your email and password to log in at FocusedPassion.com. As always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other. For Steve Snyder, this is Michael Benner. Aloha from Maui.